Good, my friends. Let us continue in our quest for knowledge and truth. Today, it says in MSL Torah, the only truth is in the Torah. So here we have an interesting, really bizarre story about Abraham. And I skipped a little bit over here. Yesterday, we just sort of began to learn about how God told Abraham to leave. And we went through, went through the 10 tests. Remember, we had a whole list of what the 10 tests are. There's some different opinions, but nevertheless, and God really put Abraham in some very difficult situations. All right, so one of them was that God told Abraham to leave all of his comfort, the comfort of his home, and the place where he was, and his friends, and his acquaintances, and his accomplishments, leave everything and go to the Holy Land. The Holy Land. And when you get there, it's going to be good. It's going to be great. That's the whole theme of the beginning of this week's Torah portion. It's the whole theme of the continuation of Abraham this week, next week. So Abraham leaves everything and he trusts in God and he goes to the Holy Land, the Promised Land, and it's terrible. It's just absolutely, it's awful. There's nothing to eat. There's a big famine. Everybody's gone or they're dead. So Abraham has no choice and he leaves. And he goes down to Egypt and his wife gets kidnapped by the king. And she miraculously gets out. Then after that, we're telling the parts we skipped. Then after that, there's a whole big story with Lot. And there's a war going on between the king of Sodom and these other kings. Anyway, 4 kings defeat 5 kings. Make a whole big battle. We would learn it, but it's very difficult to figure out what's going on over there. You know, who's against who and what's against what. Here's this amazing story that should be really clear about the greatness of Abraham and his power and his courage and how many people he killed single-handedly. In the Torah, you have to be a wizard in order to figure out what's really going on in that story. Who wins, who loses, what's going on. In any case, you can go through it and catch maybe the wizard is a bad word, but anyway. So anyway, Abraham wins. And he gets Lot, and Lot goes, he lives in Sodom. And Abraham defeats all these kings. He has to kill a lot of people. In those days, they didn't have like machine guns or, maybe they had bow and arrow. And I guess if you could throw a spear or something. But most of the fighting you did was hand-to-hand combat. And even with a bow and arrow, you could see clearly the person who you killed. In any case, so Abraham killed a lot of people. He killed a lot of people. It seems that Abraham was pretty good at fighting, and he killed a lot of people. And the Torah does not embellish the story at all, which pretty much that's the story. In Israel, I know a lot of people that are soldiers. You never hear anybody bragging about, there's not any of these war stories. You see these, war stories, G.I. Joe or whoever it is. He takes a submachine gun or takes a heavy machine gun from the helicopter, and he kills like 50 of the enemy, and he gets shot 40 times, and he gets a medal of honor and everything, which he deserves. These people deserve. In Israel, there's very little of those stories. You don't hear, these amazing. Once in a while, there was this fellow Avigdor Kilani that he held back a whole battalion of tanks, but it's very rare. And it should be much less rare because we're outnumbered like 500 to 1. And we're always winning these battles, even though we always win and then we surrender because of the government. But we'll talk about that later. Or maybe we won't talk about it at all. In any case, and that seems to be a common theme in Judaism, that we don't brag about our military victories. We're not really so happy about killing people, but we're pretty good at it when it comes right down to it. When it comes right down to it. That if people push us up to the wall, then That's it. Okay. So that's whatever. Okay, so that's what it means. Achara devorim elu. Now we're in the 5th chapter. This is right after Abraham defeats these 4 kings. Achara devorim elu. After these things, second, let's get back over here, just see what's going on in 1 second. Yeah. After these things, what things? After Abraham won this battle and he killed all these people, and he was worried that maybe God didn't like that. I mean, he killed God's creations after all. Dibur Hashem al Avram, God spoke to Avram. His name has not been changed yet, right? When he gets the circumcision, that's going to be, we'll learn about that tomorrow. But Machazai, in a vision, Lamor said, Al tir Avram, don't be afraid. I will shield you. I will shield you. I will join to you. You got a big reward. Let's just do Rashi here. There's a lot of beautiful explanations, but let's just do Rashi. Rashi. Any place where it says achar, it means right after. When it says acharei, it means a long time afterward. Muflag. Which things? Now, another thing I want to tell you is that in the Torah, the order the things are mentioned is not necessarily the order that things occur. And sometimes things can be mentioned one after the other, and really the latter thing happened earlier. Or sometimes the latter thing happened a long time afterwards, and there's other things that are mentioned afterwards in the Torah that happened in between. In any case, in this case now, when it says achar, it means immediately. Achar, after Shenasa Lones, after Abraham had a big miracle. Maybe I'll make this bigger over here. 1 second. 1 minute. Can I do it? No, I can't do it. Let's see, maybe I'll do it from over here. And I can't do that either. All right, that's what we'll just do with it. We've got it. After Abraham had a big miracle and he killed these 4 kings and all of their soldiers, but he was worried about Omar and said, Shema kibalti schar, maybe I already received all my reward. I'll call tzikati on all the good things I did, because Abraham killed all these people. Therefore, Omar lo Makom, God said, Al tira Abraham, don't be afraid. Your reward has not been lessened by the miracles that I did for you. Anochi magin lach, I will protect you from the punishment. Shalot ha'anesh, you won't get punished. Al oto nefashos, on those people that you killed. Mashata doeg al kiboscho, and also what you're worried about not receiving a reward. Vayomer Avram, and Avram said, Adonai, Elohim, God. The 2 names of God. Adonai is usually closer, and Elohim is further. But sometimes, if it's punctuated like this, then it's not written, is not read like it's written at all. It's written Elohim, because that's the punctuation. These are things which were passed down from generation to generation from the time of Moses, right? So that's how we know how to read it. And he said, okay, God said, don't worry, you're going to get a big reward. Said Abraham, Mati tenle, what are you going to give me a reward? What type of reward are you going to give me? Anochi alech hariri, I'm going with no children. Uben meshek beiti, and the one who is taking care of my household, who, domestic Eliezer, is his servant Eliezer. Why is he called domestic? So let's look at Rashi over here. I summarized what Rashi said over here. So Abraham is saying, listen, if I had a son, he would take care of my household, but I don't. I have to give it to Eliezer. Now, Eliezer was Abraham's faithful servant. Later on, we're going to see that he sends Eliezer to find a wife for his son. Right? Abraham's son was called Yitzchak. He said, what does it mean, Ben Meshek, domestic Eliezer? It says domestic is, what does it mean? Ben Meshek Beiti, Meshek means that he provided for everyone in my house. He provided for the whole household. Domestic is domestic. As some people say, no, that he came from Damascus. Damascus is, now the capital city of Syria. biggest city anyway. According to the Medrash Agada, that he rode, he chased these kings. That's what we just skipped, right? That he chased the kings to Damascus. So there's one opinion that says that Abraham, he fought against these kings, and he had, what was it, the 318 servants, and that's the gematria of Eliezer. Is that right? Yeah. Okay. In any case, the Gemara, it says like this: Damascus dole, that he lifted up, umashke, and he poured out, Damascus. He lifted and he poured out from his teachings to others. In other words, Eliezer was like the chassid of Abraham, and he went out and he. Okay, Vayomer Abraham, and Avram said to God, right? Avram only gets his name changed when he gets the circumcision. Hey, you didn't give me any children. Ben Beisi, Yereshoti. Who's going to inherit me? The people in my household. If so, what benefit do I get from anything you're going to give me? It's not going to continue in my family. It's not continuing. So God says, Hine Devar Hashem Ilav. God said, Lo Yirash Chazeh, this Eliezer, your servant, he's not going to inherit you. That who comes out from your loins, as you'll have your own child, he will inherit you. And God took him outside of his tent. I'm going to see there's a deeper meaning. And God said, Hebet no Hashemayim. Look at all the stars. Count them. Count the stars. Look to the heavens. Count the stars. Can you count the stars? Try to count them. So if you ever try to count stars, as soon as you look up in the heavens and you try to count the stars, so as soon as you get them counted, all of a sudden your eyes adjust to the darkness. You see more and more stars. And then you start to count them, and then you realize there's more and more stars. And then you just realize that the whole, just a whole, how do you say, mashed potatoes of stars in the skies. Who knows how many there's? So he said, are you able to count them? That's how many children you're going to have. Now, an interesting, parenthetical statement. Abraham did not see children like the stars of the sky. Even the truth is, he did live to see Jacob get married, but he did not get. Okay, anyway, he certainly did not see that many children. Okay, he took him out. Did he really live to see Yitzchak married? Yeah, Yaakov married. Just one. Give me a second. I'm almost sure he did. Yes. Huh? Any case, at the most, he saw 12, 13 children, offspring, grandchildren. He didn't get to see everybody. 1 minute. Yeah, here it is. There it goes. Abraham, excuse me, 1 minute. No, mistake. Abraham does not live to see, I'm sorry. He lived to see Yaakov born, but he died when Yaakov was only 13 years old, because as soon as Esau went out to sin, so God took him away 5 years early. That's why Abraham only lived 170 years. Okay, so it says, he took him outside. Lefi Pshut, the simple meaning, he took him from his tent and he said, look at the stars. But according to the Midrash, it says, he took him outside, and he took him outside of his zodiac, and outside of his, his astrological chart. He said, go out of your astrology. Look at these stars, the constellations, that according to the stars, you cannot have a child. Right? So he said, God said, you're right. Avram can't have any children, but Avraham, I'm going to change your name, and that's going to change your They say your luck, your mazel. You will have a child. And also with Sora. Her name was Sorai. Sorai can't give birth. She was already 90 years old. But Sora can give birth. I'm going to call you a different name, and that's going to change your mazal, your spiritual future. Another one, another opinion is that God took Abraham outside of the universe. Above the stars. And that's what it means. Habet, he said. Habet usually means to look down. From above to below. And he believed in God, and God considered it to be for him a righteousness. And there's another explanation over here. Here it says, he said that on having a child, he said, you're going to have a child. Abraham didn't ask for any sign. Ella, but he said, he just said, what merit have I got that I'm going to have a child? I mean, he did so much good for me. And he said, and the merit of the sacrifices, which sacrifices you're going to see in a moment. Here we go. Vayomer Elav, and God said to Abraham, Ani Hashem, I am God. I took you out of Ur Kasdim. Now, Ur Kasdim was where Abraham was thrown into a fiery furnace. This is not written in the Torah, but this hints that God miraculously took him out from this Ur. Ur means the fire of Kasdim. Why? To give you this land for an inheritance. Here, God's going to give to Abraham the land of Israel. Vayomer Adonai Elokim. And he said, Abraham said, my Lord God, how do I know I'm going to get it? Oh, so he says, on having a child, Abraham believed in God. You told me I'm going to get it, no problem. When it came to the land of Israel, Abraham said, I want a sign. Give me a sign. Oh, you're going to see what type of a sign it's going to get. Ready? Here we go. Vayomer Elav, God said to Abraham, Kachali egla mishuleshet. Take for me, there's different opinions of what this means. He says, take 3 calves, like a baby cow. The A's mishuleshet, and 3 goats. The Ayel mishulash, and 3 rams. The tor, the gazelle, and a pigeon, and like a baby pigeon. Huh? Why in the world would God want these things? Why? Rashi. Shlosh agalot, take 3 calves. This hints at the 3 cows that the Jews are going to sacrifice when the holy temple is built. The cow, which is offered on Yom Kippur. The cow, which is offered when the congregation does a sin in ignorance. And a cow from the Egla Arufa. Egla Arufa is when you find a body between 2 cities. So you take a cow, a calf, and you break its neck, and there's a whole process over there. What does it mean, mishuleshet? Why do they have to all the time 3? A's mishuleshet, and 3 goats. This hints that the goat, which is made inside on Yom Kippur, it's made, and the goat, which is on the holidays, and the goat, which is chatat yachid. If a person does a sin, then he brings by accident, so he brings a goat. The ayal mishulash, and 3 rams. This corresponds to the asham vadai. Very rarely, most of the sacrifices are only in the temple are only for sins that are done in ignorance or accidentally. But there are some that are done if you did purpose, and one of them is an asham vadai, if you're sure you did a sin, and an asham talui, and then if you have a doubt if you did a sin. Actually, these are not. This is if you find out afterwards you did a sin by accident. This is not you did a sin on purpose. The asham, there is some It says if you lie, if you take something from someone and you deny it on purpose, then you bring an asham. But that's one of the rare cases that, okay, the kibsav is a chatas yachid, and these different sacrifices. Okay, we're going to learn about the sacrifices later, but I mean, it's pretty bizarre. What in the world does God want sacrifices for? So the answer to that question is, it's pretty bizarre. The whole Torah is pretty bizarre. I mean, that God, took the Jews out of Egypt in order to give them this book so that they would do these things that God wants them to, keep Shabbat and everything. Don't put them into Egypt and don't do any favors, but it seems that it's very, very important and its essential to know that God is not at all what we think he is. He's not what we think he is. Don't think that God is this super, amorphous blob or something in heaven, and he just controls all the upper worlds and the pleasures of heaven, and you just got to get up there somehow or other. That's basically the Eastern religions. That's basically, in fact, that's basically religion. Judaism says, no. God really cares about this world, and he cares about every detail of this world, and he gave us all these weird details to do, and one of the weirdest of all the details are the sacrifices. God really wants the Jewish people, not everybody else, the Jewish people, to have a temple and to do sacrifices in it, like putting on tefillin, all these little details. But God himself wants it. Why he wants it, I don't know. We say in our prayers, Ein Kelokenu, there's nothing like our God. Okay. And take also a Tor and a Benyona. This is an older pigeon and a younger pigeon. Some people say it's two different types of pigeons. In any case, he told Abraham to do these. Vayikach lo et kol, Abraham took them. Vayabater otam b'tavach, he slaughtered them, and then he cut them into two. Vayitain ish bitro likrat re'eyu, and he separated the two parts, and he put the parts corresponding to one another. But the tzipor, but the bird, he did not divide. We'll see why. Vayered ha'ayet al pagarim, and there came down like this hawk on these pieces. Vayeshev oto Avram, and Avram turned the hawk back. This is really going to be strange. You'll see this in a second. Vayehi Hashemesh lavo, and the sun set. V'tardema nafla al Avram, and a slumber fell on Avram. V'hinei, and he saw emach hashecha gadolo nafil as love, and a fearsome darkness, great, fell on him. Vayomer l'Avram, and God said to Abraham, Avram, you have to know, that your offspring are going to be slaves. They're going to be, that is temporary dwellers, but it means they're going to be in exile in a land that's not theirs. And they will be slaves. And they will make them suffer 400 years. That's the Egyptians. The Jews suffered in Egypt for 400 years. Right? Wrong. They did not suffer for 400 years. They only suffered in Egypt they were in slavery for 210 years. So that God cut off 190 years. Hishivat Akates. Why did he say 400? So he says 400 is from when Isaac was born or whatever. Yeah, you can figure it out. Here he makes the whole calculation. You can look and see the calculation also. And this nation that is going to enslave you, I'll judge them. And afterwards, you're going to go out with a big treasures. The Lubavitcher Rebbe brings, what's this thing? You're going to suffer for 400 years, and then you're going to go out, your children are going to suffer for 400 years, but they're going to go out with a lot of money. So any normal human being will say, I don't want my children to suffer. Let's forget about the money and let's forget about the suffering. What do you say? They're going to suffer and they're going to get killed and they're going to be tortured for 400 years. And then what are they going to get? Money? Who needs it? So the Rebbe explains, no, the purpose of the Jews in the world is to elevate the world. And what God is saying is that you're going to take the money of the Egyptians and you're going to elevate it so that it's going to be holy. Not that you're going to have a lot of money. The Egyptians were all destroyed, right? What's the big deal? You're going to take their money, right? You can take everything. They could have stayed in Egypt, just been bosses over there. But the idea is to elevate it and to take it into the land of Israel. That's the whole point. Okay, let's see what exactly were these. Okay, Vata, and you, God says to Abraham, Tavo el avotecha b'shalom, you'll come in peace. but tikaver, and you will be buried in Seva Tova with a, how do you say, a good old age, 170 years old. So he says, this means that Abraham's going to have a son. We're going to see Yishmael. And Yishmael, he's going to be Abraham's, he's going to be a big evil person, but he's going to repent that before. So before Abraham dies. That's what it says. He said that Yishmael is going to repent in his lifetime. And also Esav, who is his grandson, is not going to go out to become evil in his lifetime. Therefore, God took 5 years off of his life, of Abraham's life. He was supposed to live 170 years. He only lived 175, and he only lived 170. And the day that Esav all of a sudden decided to, how do you say, to become licentious or decadent or whatever, so Abraham wouldn't see it. But the fourth generation is going to come back to Israel. Okay, we'll understand what that means. There's going to be a generation. Okay, here we go. The sun set, and there was a tremendous darkness. And a fiery furnace and a flaming torch that went between these two pieces. And that day, God made a covenant with Abraham, saying, to your seed I am giving this land from the river of Egypt, Nile River, Ad Nahar Gadol Nahar Pras, until the, what is it? The Nahar Pras, what is Nahar Pras? It says, it's called Big. Anyway, from the land of Egypt, from the south and to the east, Egypt there's maps, and I'm going to give you what lands. Here we go. The 10 lands Abraham has promised, and the Jews only get 7. The Cani, Kenizi, Kadmoni, count them, 3. Achiti, Aprizi, that's 5. At the Rephoim, that's 6. At the Amori, at the Kanani, at the Girgashi, and at the Yebusi, and 7. So let's count them again. Keni, Kenizi, Bekadmoni, that's 3. Chiti, Parizi, Rephoim. So he says, yeah, that's 6. Amori, Kanani, Girgashi, Babosi, that's 10. That's the 10 lands. Okay, and here God changes Sarah's name, and we're going to have to do this tomorrow. But let's go back a little bit. Sarai, Ashes Abraham, she didn't have any children, but she did have a maidservant, and her name was Hagar. Hagar had been an Egyptian princess, and she left it all to be the servant of Abraham, and she's going to give birth to Ishmael. Okay, let's go back. Just a couple of details over here. Here it says that the darkness came out, and there was darkness. It says this is a hint at the tremendous pain and troubles the Jewish people are going to have in exile after the Second Temple is destroyed, right? It's talking about. Okay, why does God tell Abraham to take these? 1 second. He cut them in 2, right? And he put them opposite one another. He said, what did Abraham do? He killed these animals and he put them like a little space between one and the other, so that he, so to speak, and the Shekhinah could go between them. He divided into 2, and the Torah does not go, the Torah does not leave its simple meaning, because Abraham was making a covenant with God and God was making a covenant with Abraham to keep his promise to give his children the land of Israel. Like it says, God made a covenant with Abraham. So people that made covenants, they're of course a Brit, people that made an agreement and a binding eternal agreement, what would they do? They would divide an animal, va'avor bein batorim, and they would pass between the animal, the two halves. Like it says, Shene'amar, Lahalan, later on, ha'ovrim bein batorei ha'egel. They went between the pieces of the egel. It says also in Jeremiah. So, as though to say, just like this animal is not complete one side without the other, so we're not complete one without the other. Avkan tanur ashen lapid eish. Also, this we said that the furnace and the torch, that between the pieces, this is the Shekhinah. This is God's, so to speak, a representative of God's presence. And Abraham also went between. So it says, at the Sipur lo batar, but the bird he did not divide. Why? Because the non-Jews, the nations, they're compared to oxen and rams and goats, like it says, Savavuni Parim Rabim, like it says in Psalms, and it says Ayala Shari'iti Bala Karnayim, it says in Daniel, and it says that Sfir Basir, the goat, Melech Yavan is it's also in Daniel. And the Jewish people, though, they're compared to a dove, like it says Yonate Bechag Vayasel, it says in Shir Hashem, Song of Songs. Therefore, he divided all these other animals, counting, this is hinting at the nations that oppose the Jews. They will be destroyed and evaporated. But the tzipor, the bird, this is the Jewish people that they'll be there forever. And we see that's the way it is. What the nations have stood up and they go away, and the Phoenicians, who knows, all these nations have been popping up all over the place. And they're gone with the Cro-Magnon men and the Piltdown men and whatever it is. Okay, they're all gone. And the Jewish people, here we are, we're still here, says, let's just do this and that's it. There came down this sort of hawk on the pieces, and Abraham drove it back. Okay, this is really strange. Here we go. The ayat, this is called an ayat because he can, because he draws, it's called Al Shem Shu Et V'Sho, if he draws, he's drawn to carcasses in order to take from them food. Like Et Shal, he brings a word. Okay. So he says, one minute. Okay. And Abraham drove this hawk or whatever, the eagle, away. He made it go away. This hints at, listen to this, that David ben Yishai, he's going to come to kill all of the enemies of the Jews. He is the hawk, but God will not allow him to. They won't allow him to until the Melech HaMashiach comes, and then all of the enemies of the Jews will be done away with. So here is the covenant that God made with Abraham, a very strange covenant to give him the land of Israel. Land of Israel. And like we said, remember we learned before that God said, I already gave, it says, that day God made a covenant with Abraham, and he said, Lazarcha natati, he said, I have already given the land, this land, from the Nar Mitzrayim, the boundaries, he gives the boundaries. And it was before God made this decree and this agreement with Abraham, he already agreed, God decided that he was going to give this land to the offspring of Abraham. Which offspring of Abraham? We're going to see from Yitzchak. That's going to be a little bit later. Abraham has a son called Ishmael, and Abraham says, hey, maybe Ishmael, he'll be my continuation. And God says, no way. It's Yitzchak, he's going to be the one. Yitzchak, he's going to be your son. So all of this promise is given from Abraham to Isaac and Jacob. And we see later on in when God says to Moses, "This is the land I gave to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob," etc. Eretz Israel, very essential, important to Judaism and to the world. A holy land that'll make the whole world eventually holy. Have a good day with Mashiach now.